All right, welcome everybody. This is another presentation by Aaron Elton. This one is about VenTreeLife Carbon. This is going to be our primary carbon platform under the VenTreeLife umbrella of companies. And we've got a nice little tagline here. We call it the understory of the century and the canopy of the future. A little bit of a play on words there, talking about basically what we think is one of the best carbon capture campaigns in the world. And I hope that by the end of this presentation, you'll agree with us. And largely that's because we're working within Africa, which brings a lot of unique opportunities to the world of humanity right now with respect to how much we can actually do in the landscapes and with the communities in Africa who are ready and willing to work together with equitable projects like this to empower their lives and better the world. And I think the whole carbon capture and carbon credit campaign going on globally right now for the global warming crisis. It's a really unique opportunity, and I think we've kind of got a winning solution here. So let's jump into it. So our project, as you know, with VenTreeLife, if you've been following the brand, it's centered around agroforestry. So the mother company is all about producing products from forests, acquiring forest resources, so that we maintain a equilibrium with the ecologies where we source our products, then manufacture these products for value addition to ensure that the communities are well paid and profitable from this program. So our focus is agroforestry. We put this picture. This is one of our younger plantations on Priceless Farms. You can see about 10 different species of trees being intercropped here. We've got fruit trees, we've got food trees, we've got Moringa in there, Lyra. There's a lot of different trees in this picture, and this is kind of an image that shows you the tapestry and the dynamic reality of what agroforestry is. And all that green space on the bottom there can be put to any different types of crops throughout the year as we go in and we manure them and we open up and add more and more people into this system. So it's a very conducive, environmentally friendly method of growing foods, fuels, and fibers. And that's really what we're focused on here. So with VenTreeLife Carbon, we're going after what we call, stacking functions. And adding the carbon credits to agroforestry in East Africa, we think is going to be a major catalyst for developing these plantations and repairing a lot of the damaged landscapes. So stacking functions is really what agroforestry is all about, and it's really what Mother Nature is doing, with the tree being sort of the hierarchical canopy species, providing shade, roots, and water, and all different types of nutrients and support for ground covers and various different other types of species. So when we look to nature through the lens of a designer or permaculture design, we start to mimic this, and the carbon credits itself coming on top of the primary business that VenTreeLife and Priceless Farms is promoting is, again, it's another function of a financial tool that can allow us to massively and rapidly expand the forest cover in Africa to as many villages and as many communities as possible, thus reducing the impact of carbon emissions on global warming. But in our case here, we're talking about intercropping with food crops, and this is why we're promoting Moringa. So Moringa is going to be a key focus here. We've identified Moringa as one of the top carbon sequestering trees in the world. It just has an incredible amount of gaseous exchange in its leaflets, in the leaf itself. It's just an incredible carbon capture tree, and it's got a fairly long lifespan that can be very productive. So it produces a lot of products at the same time that it's sequestering. And in this instance, for carbon, we allow the tree to grow as big as possible because the objective is to capture as much carbon as possible, work with big companies to partner to pay for the carbon credits, and then pay the communities a good wage and a good price for all of the byproducts. And you'll see how we've split this up. So Moringa is excellent for this because it's such a robust species. It has high survival rates, and it intercrops with other foods and other crops. So when we go to plant a VenTreeLife carbon plantation, we're not reducing or removing any existing or offsetting any existing foodscapes. We're actually intercropping with them. And that's a really, really important thing. Now, of course, we'll also have commercial plantations where we strictly focus on the moringa, because you'll see later on that this is a very potent product for us to sell. And there's a lot of profitability in doing this for every stakeholder involved. So we've got an Africa-wide approach. This VenTreeCARBON Carbon, our objective is to become one of the best carbon capture and carbon credit platforms in all of Africa. Of course, we're starting in Uganda where all of these companies are being founded. And yeah, we're going to be working with anybody who allows us to contract on their properties. We will also acquire our own properties. And there's many different ways to get access to land and work with communities to establish these types of developments. So our whole thing as VenTreeLife, based on the priceless farms and the permaculture model, is to be truly fair and develop truly equitable projects with whoever decides to work with us, so that we have a long-term legacy connection with those people and those landscapes. And that's really how we're going to shift ultimately the global issues that we're all facing. Is we need long-lasting solutions, and we do believe that this carbon credit thing gives us the opportunity to do that at rapid speed. I think that's really what the carbon credits have been designed to do, is enable people like us who have the means and the wherewithal to actually do these plantations, to do them faster, to do them quickly, because we're looking at a bit of a band-aid solution right now for humanity, and you're going to see that we can have a major impact on global warming. Of course, we're going to have a tracking software for transparency, and there's a little bit of technology developed here that we've already got. And we're going to work with third-party institutions like the International University of East Africa, get them accredited, develop workshops and certificate courses for their students to then become the auditors, because this is it's an intensive undertaking. There's going to be a lot of different people involved, from management to labor, and then of course also the audits and making sure that everything is being audited effectively with the right software at the right time, so that we provide a legitimate, high quality, standardized service to our buyers around the world. So just taking a quick look at the numbers here, it's quite staggering. So it's been proposed by various different studies. Keep in mind that these numbers, they fluctuate based on the studies that you find. And we've gone over about 12 different studies so far, and we found that we've averaged out some numbers here for you. But there are some pretty amazing statistics out there. And the first one here is a Japanese study where they discovered that the Moringa tree equals 50 Japanese cedar trees in carbon capture. So you can imagine, if you plant 1 million Moringa trees, now picture what 50 million Japanese cedar trees would look like. I mean, we're talking about hills and hills and hills and mountains and mountains and mountains of Japanese cedar trees to make up 50 million trees. So the Moringa tree is truly miraculous in the fact that it does capture a lot of carbon. So it's about 20 times, it's been proposed that it's about 20 times the carbon capture of general vegetation. Already that alone is just staggering. So what we've done is we've averaged out over the years that approximately 1,000 trees per hectare is a good spacing for seed production, which allows the tree to grow to full maturity over 30, 40 years. And when you look at the various different data sets out there, we've averaged out that each tree is doing about 15 kilos of CO2 capture per annum. And this is an average, and this is actually a low average. We're being very conservative here. Some studies show 80 kilos, some studies show 20, some studies show 50, others show 9, and in the early stages you have a little bit lower as the tree is very young. And so we've taken all of those different data sets and then we've averaged it out to about 15 kilos. So we can be very confident that each of our Moringa trees is going to be doing, on average, about 15 kilos per year. Which is, for every hectare, 15,000 kilos or 15 tons of CO2 captured, which is great. So our pilot project, we want to do 2,000 hectares. When you're talking about carbon capture, you got to think big, you got to go big, and that's really what we're into. So that'll be about 2 million trees. That'll generate 30,000 tons of CO2 per annum offset, so captured out of the atmosphere. And at a $15 per ton sale price, that's about 450,000 carbon credit sales. Multiply that by 30 years, you're looking at $13.5 million. So if we sell a 2,000 hectare plantation to an airline or a cryptocurrency data mining company, basically for the next 30 years, you'll offset 30,000 tons of CO2 per year for a price tag of about $13,500,000. Doesn't matter who it is, could be a private company, could be any transport companies, whatever it is. And that $15 is actually quite low because carbon credits per ton can even go for over $50. The average is around $35. And right here, right now, like the $13.5 million for 2,000 hectares over 30 years, that's like the lowest we would ever go. And, that is, again, like I said, we're being conservative with this presentation. So the numbers are quite amazing. Now, with that $13.5 million, we can easily get that plantation established and maintain it over that 30-year period, knowing also that there's products which also add to the validity of the business model to keep it and make sure that it is profitable. Moving on. So use of funds. This is just some example of how we use the funds. So carbon credits funds are obviously used to establish the plantations. This is where we come in with the come back to the concept of rapid business development. Band-aid solutions, but this is not just a band-aid solution. This is a long-term solution. So full payments are optional, or we could break it up into periods of 10 years where, one company could say, well, I'll buy the first 10 years, and then other companies can come in and buy the next 10-year chunks. And we basically just, in this presentation, conservatively, we say, well, we're going to do it over a 30-year period, because after that, the carbon capture starts to slow down as the trees reach their full size capacity. We can do partner structures, so we can do like kingdoms with cooperatives, we can work with foundations, we can work with other companies, oil and gas companies who have large tracts of land that they want to remediate. So there's a lot of different ways we can do this. And just as an example, if we were to work with a kingdom, because the kingdoms represent a very large portion of the landmass in Africa, they also represent a cultural touch base with people, which will make it relatively simple to do the tree planting campaign. So if we took 1,000 hectares of our pilot study, you might see about 500 farmers. That's an average of 2 hectares per farmer, plant up to the 10 meter squared spacing. Then you would see a split. You would see that we would push approximately 50% of the profits directly to the farmers themselves, which is good money to help them. And keep in mind, this is even in the profits of the carbon credits. And then 25% would go to like the Kingdom Foundation or whatever is the local partner who's doing the work with the community to finance them and to help them build schools and hospitals and whatever they want to build. And then 25% would stay in-house for us to manage and maintain all of our softwares and employees, and also have a little bit of profits there as well for our investors. Now that's just the community model. Okay, so for the commercial model, it's completely different. Commercial model, we're pretty much 100% in control, and we develop an industry around each of those plantations. What do we say here at the bottom? Long-term seed market established with fair pricing to farmers. So basically, because we're growing these trees to their full maturity, the primary product is the seeds. And so we establish with our networks a conducive, rock-solid price of the seeds so that, as you'll see, we develop some industries around those seeds, and we give a guarantee to the farmers that we will buy all of those seeds in mass for these different markets. So let's keep going here. So this is just a little bit about, VenTreeLife Carbon as a company. What is it? So we'll have a major focus on commercial plantations. This is where we have 100% control and a lot better data and definitely better and higher returns, because it's more intensive operations than the community model. The community model is a great way to expand and double down your numbers in terms of how many trees you have. But the commercial plantations are truly where the real value in production is going to come out of. Of course, we're going to develop a software. There's several other software companies out there that we're looking at. We're vetting a few that we may want to work with. We might want to white label some existing softwares. But basically, we'll be tracking all of the sales and all of the different aspects of what's going on with the properties and the growers and so on. And we do have a local platform here developed by the International University of East Africa called ESIS Farm, which also gives us touch base with people who don't have smartphones, but they're operating off of the text message SMS style communication platform, which is very, very effective for rural development and rural touch base, because a lot of people don't have smartphones yet. So there are some really good technologies on the table right now. And of course, we'll be working to get accredited with international firms and develop partnerships with international firms to enhance our efficacy and trust in what we're doing. I think that's going to be the key thing with carbon credit companies going forward. is that you're going to have to reach a point where people trust you. And this means we're going to have celebrities involved. We're going to have government, let me say, accreditations and so on and so forth. And eventually, our objective here is to grow to such a scale that we become like a carbon credit bank, which again, that's a whole other presentation right there when we start talking about stuff like that. So we'll just leave that at the moment. Move on, we'll talk about the growers, kingdoms, cooperatives, commercial plantations is really the focus. In the beginning, we're just going to start with commercial plantations because until we prove the business model on commercial sites, there's no point in going out to the communities and asking them to do it with you. It's really dangerous, actually, and it's quite, how would you say, irresponsible for companies to go out and, massively plant all of these tree plantations before they've even proven their business models. So we're going to do commercial plantations to begin with, and then move on to the cooperatives and the kingdoms to expand. We can plant industrial parks, forest reserves, road and rail reserves, and pipeline reserves for the oil and gas industry. As you know, there's a lot of development and a lot of industrialization that's coming down the line throughout Africa, and that means there's going to be a lot of landscapes available that are sort of government lands where we can get those tenders and say, hey, we will maintain a green belt around these zones, and share the carbon credits with the government, share the carbon credits with the companies that are responsible to those lands, and it's a win-win situation. And we do want to develop our own sort of one system for tracking everything and making sure that all of the data, all of the customers, all of the growers are on one giant server and platform for us to easily access at any point based on your level of involvement in the project. So from admin to buyers to the actual users and growers themselves, there'll be different levels of access to the data. So the buyers, for those of you who don't know the carbon credit market very well, pretty much oil companies, airlines, corporations, like governments can also offset if the carbon taxes are coming. There's no doubt about it. Humanity has to do something about the carbon issue in the atmosphere. And so pretty much we're ready to work with anybody, and we're looking for our first, buyers. And we do feel a very strong synergy with the cryptocurrency community. I think there's a lot of money there to be put back to recapture the carbon which is being emitted from the data mining. Particularly Bitcoin is obviously one of the biggest emitters. And then, of course, if we could get some airlines that are looking to offset, there's a lot of marketing and there's a lot of feel-good sort of CSR to be gleaned for various different public sectors. And in the future, maybe we'll work with oil and gas companies who are looking for alternative fuels, because there is an opportunity there to explore with respect to biofuels from Africa in these types of systems. But that's still something that's being researched and discovered as we go along. So as I mentioned before, the moringa tree is just amazing because it has so many byproducts. And basically here you can see that we've got the seeds producing a very high-grade oil, and that oil can also be extracted for glycerin to make really high-grade soaps. And then the process of pressing the oil, you get this seed cake, which is also an industrial flocculant for cleaning water, and it's also really good for animal feeds as well. So there's quite a lot of support data out there. So these three industries, the cosmetic oil, the soaps, and the animal feeds, are really big potential markets for us. Each one of those is growing between 6 to 12% per year, per annum, depending where you are in the world, particularly the soap and the cosmetic oil. Moringa oil is heralded as one of the best oils in the world for cosmetic use. It's a protector, it's a wrinkle reducer, it's a youth serum, and it's antiviral, antibacterial. You can eat it. It's really good for your digestive health. And it's all just amazing stuff there. So there's a big market there. And, here you can see the market growth of these different things. So this is the glycerin market, which is related to soap. And you can just see it's going up by around 10% per year. And basically, you can see the oil markets here, the byproducts of the seed husks. You can see the growth rates there are quite nice. And moringa is a immune booster. So you can see down there at the bottom right corner, the moringa oil for cosmetic is between $30 to $60 a liter. It's absolutely very high value oil. So if we sell, 1,000 liters a month, that's another $30,000 of income every month of revenue generation, which is quite exciting. And getting close to the end of the presentation here, I don't want to take too much of your time. Our objective is to eventually reach the billion tree mark. If we can do this, you're looking at about $225 million annually at $15 of carbon credits being sold. You're looking at 15 million tons of CO2 being sequestered annually. And we did some basic calculations off of some data that we found online, and it looks like 1 billion trees is equal to offsetting about 26.5% of New York City's carbon emissions. That would cost $500 million to establish, okay, at about 50 cents per tree. And over a 30-year lifespan, that produces $6.75 billion in carbon credits for 30 years. And so that's $2.25 billion every 10-year period for the carbon credit payments. That's 1 million hectares, or 1/24th the size of Uganda. And to be perfectly honest, I've been here for 15 years. This is doable. And this is how we go forward as a species and then start to reclaim the atmosphere that we need to survive, and also springboard with the bridge of financing that's now coming into Africa to then move towards other badlands like the deserts and the semi-arid landscapes, to bring them back to lush, potent, fertile, and wet landscapes. And that's really what our long-term objective is as a set of companies, is to basically reforest all of Africa, head to toe. That's what we're going to do. So this is all preliminary information. Thank you so much for your time. We're looking for $5 million to establish the company, between $5 to $10 million. We are going to put up some equity there. We're welcome to debt financing, but also don't forget that since we're already pretty much on the track of building out this company and getting the minimum viable products to market now, we're also looking at getting accredited and starting by selling the carbon credits to larger companies. So it's a highly profitable business model that we've created here. We're very, very excited about this. We do believe this is one of the most catalytic, positive change makers in the world at the moment, and it's timely, and it's tapping into the existing infrastructure which is being built in legislations all over the world from high-emitting countries, where we have the opportunity in countries like Uganda, which are low-emitting countries, to offset, and to do it in such a way that's truly positive and conducive for human development and environmental development. So thank you so much for your time. Give me a call. I'm available online. You can find my YouTube channel. It's Aaron Elton. And check us out. Please reach out. And once again, have a wonderful day. And thanks again for your time.